What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I would personally like to wish you a very happy, as I like to say, Victory Polo Monday. It's a confusing thing on days like today. It is Friday, September 27th, 2024, but given the fact that the Dallas Cowboys won last night, that still makes today, even though it's a Friday, a Victory Polo Monday. So I've got my polo on. I hope you have yours, whether it's a polo, a t-shirt, you painted your fingernails. I don't care. You should be celebrating the Dallas Cowboys. You should have a Dallas Cowboys song in your heart. That's what matters the most. I know it was not pretty. I know that it was frustrating in a lot of ways, but a win is a win is a win is a win, and we do not apologize for those. We are here in the BR app to discuss what we saw last night from the Dallas Cowboys. Very excited to do so with you. Shout out to my friends at BR, the very best app in the world of sports. I use it constantly, all the time, all day, every single day to keep track and tabs on all of my teams. You can follow me in the BR app right down below. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa, or on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. All right, let's begin. Anxious to see your comments as well, by the way, because I'm sure that you are feeling a certain type of way. In fact, let's go ahead and push our first poll of the day. This game left you feeling. We have three different, kind of answers you can go with here. I don't know why I said kind of, they're actual answers. But inspired is one place you can go. Maybe you woke up and you are, you got a belly full of the silver and blue Gatorade. Kind of mid, right? Like maybe, they won and that's cool, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at personally. Or maybe you're even more angry. Maybe you're even more upset. Maybe you somehow are even more pissed off at this team than we all kind of have been collectively, not just this week, but over the course of the last, whatever it's been, 7-8 months. A win is a win is a win is a win, like I said, and we do not, apologize for those. If we take a look at the win in question, shout out to my friends at NFL Pro. Going to zoom in right here. As you can see, this was never in doubt. This is probability for game, and this was never something that the Cowboys were ever in real serious jeopardy of dropping. I know it felt that way, but consider that the Giants did not score a single touchdown, even though they came, I would say very close a couple of times. That's just who Daniel Jones is. That's who Brian Daboll is, a coward. I have my issues with Mike McCarthy, but I would take him 100 out of 100 times over Brian Daboll right now. Brian Daboll finally woke up late in the game, but it was too late. If we take a look at the statistics for the Cowboys here, Dak Prescott was marvelous on the evening, 22 of 27 for 221 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. In fact, if we break that down a little bit more specifically, and my friends at Next Gen Stats did, Dak Prescott was 13 of 14 on throws under 2.5 seconds. And of those 14 attempts, those 13 completions, 143 yards of the 221 ultimately came, and both of the touchdowns, the screen pass, of course, to Rico Dowdle, and the 55-yard bomb to CeeDee Lamb. If we look at the run game a little bit more deeply here, oops, I almost lost this completely. Let me zoom out just a bit so you can see it. Rico Dowdle, look, I'm gonna get the stats off the screen because it's not great. It's what we're seeing from the Cowboys run game is still not wonderful, is still not perfect, is still not at a place where I think we're all feeling content and optimistic. I don't think it's any secret that the Cowboys need help at the running back position. I am not someone on the internet who believes that Dalvin Cook is this answer that's just going to solve all of the issues that Dallas has going on. But what I will say, for the first time all season, the Dallas Cowboys had every player in their backfield. And by backfield, I mean their ball carriers, not CeeDee Lamb, not Dak Prescott. But we're talking about Rico Dowdle, Zeke Elliott, and Hunter Lipke, because we're throwing him in the mix here. All three of them finished in the positive, in the black, relative to rush yards over expected. And I love this stat because it does a great job of eliminating offensive line play. It tells you how a running back was supposed to fare, and they all finished in the positive. It had been a really tough go, some tough sledding for the Cowboys in this capacity through the first 3 weeks of the season. So it was improvement, but I think at this moment in time, we're all inclined to say that might be more to do with who the Giants are than who the Cowboys are. So this is something that the Cowboys have to fix, and that's where winning this game ultimately matters. All right, this was a big win for Dallas. It was a very unique win. We're going to get to why in just a second, but it was a big win because they stopped the bleeding. We were pissed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I know who you are. I know I don't know where you are. This isn't a doxing situation, but I know you, and I know that you were pissed off because I was pissed off. We were all pissed off at this team, and they chilled us out. We put our pitchforks down. We're going to be calmed down for a little bit. We have a fantastic weekend of college football, of NFL football that we get to sit back and enjoy with a win already in the bank. But on Monday, we're going to be right back and ready to jump on the internet and tell the Cowboys how we feel and give them a piece of our minds, because you can't do this. You can't expect to play this well in certain areas and barely win on a weekly basis. And what do I mean by that? I told you a moment ago, Dak Prescott 13 of 14 on passes under 2.5 seconds for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know there are some of you out there that have your agendas determined that are never going to give Dak Prescott credit for anything. This was an elite performance from Dak. Not elite in gaudy statistical senses, but it was an elite an elitely, that's not a word, but an elitely efficient night from Dak Prescott. You are not guaranteed to get that from anyone on a week-to-week basis. This was the best game of Mazy Smith's entire career, which I recognize is not saying a ton. But Mazy Smith was dynamic. He was amazing on Thursday night in New York or New Jersey, whatever you want to call it. I know some of you are sensitive about that. Terrence Steele was awesome. Brian Burns, who the Giants traded for and paid all that money to, did not have a single pressure against the Dallas Cowboys. It was the first time in Burns' career in which he had at least 10 or more pass rush attempts that he did not generate a single pressure. And of the 25 plays in which he was rushing the passer, Brian Burns was going up against Terrence Steele on 17 of them. I'm building my point here because Dak Prescott was amazing. Mazy Smith was amazing. Terrence Steele was amazing. You got elite games, elite play from players who you don't expect a lot from in Mazy Smith and Terrence Steele. And it worked out wonderfully for you, right? Like, you're never going to turn down something like that. But to kind of just contextualize everything, if I told you on a given day, a random day, that the worst players on the Cowboys, I hate to say that about Mazy Smith or Terrence Steele today because they deserve their flowers, and I don't mean to bring them down. But if I told you that, you'd say like, yeah, dude, something awesome must have happened if those two were kicking ass. And that's exactly what happened on Thursday night. The Cowboys got elite performances from some of the players that we expect the least amount of production from, and they still did not cover. Think about that. It was such a thin margin of victory. They still were in a position, the Cowboys were, that is, where the New York Giants had the football and the ability to win the game in the final moments. I know there were only 28 seconds. I know the Giants hadn't scored a touchdown to that point and ultimately wouldn't across the rest of the game. I know all of that, but all it took was one amazing pass, and we almost saw it to Malik Neighbors with Malik Hooker. I have no idea what Malik Hooker's doing right now. I have no idea what Donovan Wilson's doing right now. I have no idea what the Cowboys safety group is doing. The Cowboys safeties had become such a reliable part of their defensive operation over the last 3 years, the Dan Quinn era, and their safeties all look horrible for the most part. Malik Hooker got ran down by a tight end. I know that the fumble didn't count, but that cannot happen, Malik Hooker. No matter what, you cannot ever get run down by a tight end. That is simply a no-no in the NFL when you play the safety position. But that being said, my kind of bigger point here is that you got these great performances from players who you cannot count on to be great in general, let alone on a consistent basis, and you still barely, by the hair on your chinny chin, beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. So what's going to happen in 2 weeks when the Detroit Lions come to town? What's going to happen the week after that, or 2 weeks after that, excuse me, because the bye week follows the Lions game? When you go to San Francisco to take on the Niners, who knows if Christian McCaffrey's back? What happens when you host the Philadelphia Eagles or the Houston Texans or the Cincinnati Bengals, assuming they get things figured out and worked out by, later in the season? What's going to happen when these really good teams who we can trust to be good come in? They're not going to let you hang around and barely win because you put up a nice, little bit of a wall in the early parts of the game. They're not going to get skunked in the touchdown department. This is a Cowboys team that can take the lessons of losing while having won. It is truly the best of both worlds. I think that we all are able to admit, us, because we're mature and we've been watching this team, that the way they've gone about things from the beginning of the offseason was no bueno. It was basura. It was trash. It was awful. It was terrible. And it has left the team in a hole that they are trying desperately to not fall deeper and deeper and deeper into. There's a difference between not trying to fall deeper into the hole and trying to climb out. The Cowboys don't even have the ability right now to try to climb out. They're just trying to prevent falling deeper into the abyss. Think about what last night entailed, not just in terms of what happened on the field, but the injuries associated with it. DeMarcus Lawrence, we don't know the full status of. I'm constantly checking Twitter to make sure nothing is happening on that front. Micah Parsons, my fellow BR creator here, we don't know the full status of. Trayvon Diggs had a scary moment. I mean, the Cowboys, in a lot of ways, we're fortunate to emerge just in general, let alone with the win. And so on top of that, they cannot be serious if they go about things the way that they are, because what they're doing right now is not working in any real sense, offensively, defensively. Again, they survived, but they shouldn't be pounding their chest about doing something that they're very proud of. Consider that last night, Thursday night, we saw 3 plays from the Dallas Cowboys offense in which a ball carrier, not on a pass, not on a reception, but on a handoff or a run play, we saw 3 instances in which a player reached 15 miles an hour. I recognize that's asking for a lot. I ran 2 miles yesterday morning, not trying to brag about myself. I didn't hit 15 miles an hour at any point in my run. But that being said, we saw 3 instances in which a Dallas Cowboys ball carrier on a run play specifically hit 15 miles an hour. 2 of them belong to CeeDee Lamb. I don't know why Mike McCarthy is obsessed with this end around thing. Actually, I do know why Mike McCarthy is obsessed with this end around thing, because the other instance in which a player hit 15 miles an hour on a run play was Hunter Lipke. And I love Hunter Lipke. I'm all about Hunter Lipke. I'm super excited about what's going on with Hunter Lipke. But no offense to Hunter Lipke, he should not be leading the charge in explosiveness for ball carriers relative to the Dallas Cowboys. There has to be a difference-making dynamic option in the backfield. And right now, try as they might, Rico Dowdle, Zeke Elliott, even though they finished in the black, in the positives as far as things like rush yards over expected in this game specifically, it's not happening there. And I hate to break it to all of you, but it's probably not happening with Dalvin Cook either. I see you, DZ55 says, why is their offense looking so sloppy and so predictable now? They don't run and play action and motions anymore. This is a difficult question to answer, right? Because I think it involves a few different details. Number one, Mike McCarthy kind of in a funk. There's just no doubt about it. And I have carried a lot of water from Mike McCarthy in the past. Haven't carried a drop this year, because how could you at this point in time? And people, by the way, act like your opinion on things can't change. I thought that Mike McCarthy did a lot of great things, has brought a lot of football stability to this team. But here in 2024, there's just nothing you can say to defend him, because to your point, DZ55, I mean, where is it? We're not asking for something that is impossible here, right? We're not saying like, oh, why aren't the Cowboys, why don't the Cowboys score 50 points a game? What a bunch of losers. We're not saying anything like that. We're saying, why aren't you using things you've used before, right? We know that the Cowboys are capable of utilizing motion and play action and scheming guys open. We saw it in this game when the Cowboys went to New York last year. Granted, that was the season opener. It's a little bit different because you can script a lot more things relative to once you get into the grind of a season. But when we saw the Cowboys at MetLife Stadium to face the Giants a year ago, we saw them scheme CeeDee Lamb open. We saw them utilize Kevontae Turpin in some cute and fun ways, not out of necessity the way we saw it a week ago against the Baltimore Ravens. So we have seen this team do it. But even if we hadn't seen this team do it, the proof is in the pudding. Look around the NFL. Look at the most functional, the most performative, the most efficient offenses across the league. They are all born of the Kyle Shanahan tree or the Sean McVay tree. Some people have a foot in both camps, like Matt LaFleur. You get the general idea, the general premise here. And they all understand that utilizing motion, utilizing these facets, utilizing these elements is a key to success. And so how you can look at that and see that and not want to emulate that in any way, shape, or form is not only stubborn, it's stupid. It's actually stupid. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Yet somehow, some way, here we are. Cool Tonio says it's time to rebuild this team. They'll be lucky with 8 wins this season. It's getting ready to get ugly for them. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Dallas Cowboys, because you mentioned, obviously, finishing with 8 wins. I almost clicked the wrong button and blew my computer up. That would have been terrible. But here, right, this is the Cowboys schedule. You're looking at my tweet. Shout out to me. That's RJ Ochoa. Me. Anyway, so you can follow me on Twitter, by the way, at RJ Ochoa. So the Cowboys are 2-2. We'll see what the Pittsburgh Steelers do this week. They're hosting the Indianapolis Colts. I don't want to speak for all of you, but I'm going to say that we think that the Steelers win that game. So, okay, cool. So the Steelers will be undefeated, at the very worst 3-1 when the Cowboys get to town. Steelers have an amazing defense. I'm hard pressed to take the Cowboys right now, but I'm going to. I don't know if there are any odds on this game quite yet. I'm checking as I say this to buy myself some time. It's Sunday Night Football, so it's the penultimate game of the week, unless we have we do have an early line. Pittsburgh is a 1.5 point favorite. Granted, they are at home, so make of that what you will. But so I'm going to give Dallas that Pittsburgh game. I'm going to drop that Lions game for them. So that's going to put them at an even Steven 500, 3-3 entering the bye. They're going to lose in San Francisco because they always do. And let's just kind of, run through this quickly here. So that puts them at 3-4 under 500. Maybe they beat Atlanta. They're 4-4 again. They'll probably they'll split those next two games. That puts them at 5-5. Maybe they win it, or maybe they lose at Washington. They're 5-6. They beat the Giants on Thanksgiving. That's Thanksgiving Day, by the way. That puts them at 6-6. Maybe they split again between the Bengals and the Panthers, 7-7. I messed up my math here at some point in time. That's 14. No, I'm good here. And then the Bucks, maybe they lose to the Bucks, right? They're 7-8 and they're heading to Philadelphia with their season on the line. Maybe they get that win. They're 8-8, and then they go to Washington, they host Washington in the season finale to finish at 9-8 above 500. And who knows, maybe the NFC East is that bad that they can win it right there. So, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to find the if we had a bucket, right? If the bucket was what are the easy wins, what are the for sure the ones we can bank on, absolutely. The Giants, I think, would have been one of them, but we all felt tentative. I picked the Cowboys yesterday, to be very clear here, and maybe you did, maybe you bet on them, and if so, apologies if you got the 5.5 because that was a brutal bad beat with the Brandon Aubrey miss. But that being said, we would have put last night. At the season's beginning in April when the schedule came out, we would have put the two Giants games in the faux show bucket, right? And last night, dude, the game last night was in the faux show bucket, and they barely pulled it off. So again, I'm not trying to chicken little this or Eeyore this. The Cowboys won yesterday, and I'm very happy about that. And I hope you are too. And I hope you enjoy it, because look. It's hard to win in the NFL, and it's frustrating when your team loses. We know that because they lost the last 2 weeks, and it's been utter hell on the internet. So we should enjoy this. But again, we can have perspective and we can have context and we can contextualize the situation, not just in the moment, but moving forward and extrapolate it all. And it's difficult to put any more in the faux show box or the faux show bucket because the one you had in the faux show bucket, you barely pulled off. I agree with Brade on in the comment section. Says BB played well. It was a phenomenal game from Cooper Beebe. Mazy Smith, it's already been noted all over the internet by my great fellow friends, fellow content creators around the Dallas Cowboys space that Mazy Smith was the highest graded player on the Cowboys by PFF. Mazy was amazing. Mazy was phenomenal. I mean, if that's one of those things, if right now you're sitting there and you're saying, what could happen, right? If you're windhorsing this, what could happen to actually change the fortunes of this season for the Dallas Cowboys? One of those things is Mazy Smith becoming that dude. Mazy Smith becoming amazing. I told you that this game was unique at the top of the stream for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's partly because of Mazy Smith. Let me share another tweet of myself. I promise I'm not a narcissist. It's just easiest to share my own tweets because I've already tweeted them out. So let's take a look here. This is courtesy of my friends at StatHead and Pro Football Reference. All right. So the Cowboys, what makes this game unique is partly how bad they were on offense, but it's also partly Mazy Smith being amazing. So the Cowboys, you'll see in the tweet here, held the ball for fewer than 25 minutes because we saw the Giants go on those extraordinarily long drives, methodical drives that time after time after time after time ended in field goals, which was amazing. Again, Brian Daboll is a coward. And Dallas only scored 20 points because Mike McCarthy knows what he's doing right now. Interestingly, the Cowboys had 80 yards rushing, which was an improvement for them in some respects. So, the bar is low. But all these things happened in a game for only the 11th time. And this is a testament, again, to Mazy Smith because of one thing specifically. That was tweet one. Let's get to tweet number two. I almost lost this again. Tweet number two. This is where Mazy Smith comes in to make this just stupid amazing. Mazy Smith dominated the New York Giants along the interior on Thursday night. And if we look at this, the Giants had 26 yards rushing. 26 yards rushing. Who are they? The Dallas Cowboys? I mean, holy crap. That's unbelievable to have 26 yards rushing. But what is more unbelievable is because sometimes you're down 14-3 in the blink of an eye, right? Look at the Cowboys over the course of the last 2 weeks against New Orleans and Baltimore. And when things like that happen, you all of a sudden have your game plan completely and totally changed. You're thrusted into passing situations. You can't really afford to run the ball. There are unique moments, obviously, in times where it works out for you. Off the top of my head, if you recall, the Cowboys fell down early in St. Louis 10 years ago against the Rams. They were down 21-0, and they did not abandon the run. And they pulled off the comeback. It was amazing. It was part of the magic that was that 2014 season for the Dallas Cowboys. But that being said, the New York Giants had 26 rushing yards on 24 attempts. It wasn't like they got, boat raced early on and abandoned the run. They kept running the ball. I mean, I know that 24 is not a ton, but it's also not a little. 26 yards on 24 attempts. If you can see the bottom part of my tweet here, this was only the 10th time in almost 50 years, almost half of a century, that a team in the NFL had so few yardage with at least 24 rushing attempts. And weirdly, these generally wind up being victory efforts for the teams in question. The last instance in which this particular set of circumstances happened was 11 years ago. It was on November 24th, 2013. That's my son's birthday, by the way. Not that day, but that day in general. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did it and beat the Detroit Lions in the process, which is amazing. So Mazy Smith almost single-handedly literally did this to the New York Giants and disrupted anything and everything, all of their efforts on the ground. It was a phenomenal effort. So if that can happen, that all of a sudden makes the Dallas Cowboys who they have been trying to become over the course of the last few years, because they have been pretty soft in the middle. They have gotten bullied. They have gotten pushed around. They have talked. They've used all sorts of verbiage. They wanted to be glass eaters a couple of years ago. They wanted to get more tough, more rough, more badass. I don't know if I'm willing to ascribe all of this success, if you want to call it that, to Mike Zimmer, because there's too much else happening to where I can't give Mike Zimmer any real credit about this. Where I'm going to place the credit, and I hope you do too, is Mazy Smith, because he was phenomenal on Thursday night. Kudos to him. All right, so let's get to another comment. Dan Vasquez says, the reality is we're not disciplined at all. Years of double-digit penalty games, 100 yards of penalties doesn't win games. The coach has lost the team. We have the talent but need young-minded coaching. I'm not going to go as far as saying the coach has lost the team or anything like that, because if the coach had lost the team, they would have folded. I mean, I recognize they almost did, and this isn't meant to be a defense of Mike McCarthy, I promise you. But if he had lost the team, they would have truly folded, and they did not do that. And they may fold later on this year, but they did not fold on Thursday, September 26th. That being said, the penalties, I am definitely with you to a certain degree, because this is not a new thing, right? We've seen Mike McCarthy teams be penalized in the past. We've seen them have discipline issues, and we're going to get to the tackling in a moment. But I would also offer that it was a really horribly officiated game both ways. There were horrible penalties. Just an insane. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be rude here, but any officials in the chat, we don't care. All right, call the game, stay out of the way. Don't ruin this. All right, we watch the game for the game. We don't watch the game for you. Stop annoying us. Stop interrupting things. You're ruining the flow. You're ruining the vibe. Be cool. Stop messing with the game and the sport and the entertainment product that we all love. All right, back to the tackling, because that is also related to the subject of discipline. It isn't just penalties. Look, Donovan Wilson had an amazing run for the Cowboys. All right, amazing. We are at a place now where he is a liability. Donovan Wilson had that. Look, I know the Giants didn't score a touchdown. All right? I know that the Giants only had 5 field goals, whatever. But one of those field goals came specifically because Donovan Wilson could not wrap up Devin Singletary. What was it? 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1. I mean, seriously, if you're meeting somebody 3-4 yards behind the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1, that's a stop. That's a fist in the air. That is a turnover on downs. You give the ball back to your offense. You go down. You prosper. Instead, Donovan Wilson thinks he can just throw his shoulder and knock Devin Singletary off, and it doesn't happen. Devin Singletary breaks the tackle, breaks another one. I have no idea what Maris Liufau is doing either, and gets to the outside and picks up a first down. And the New York Giants turn a poor disciplinary effort into points. Again, I recognize it was only a field goal. It wasn't a touchdown. It wasn't as bad as it could possibly be, but it happened in a game in which the Dallas Cowboys won by a singular possession. Points matter. All points matter. And you cannot give piss poor effort. You cannot have piss poor discipline at any moment in the NFL, because it's going to come back to haunt you. We talked about a little while ago, Malik Hooker, and Kirk Herbstreit brought it up on the broadcast, obviously, on the final drive, a few plays before the actual interception. Malik Hooker went for the interception and gave up his man, and had it been a better throw, and it wasn't, because we know who Daniel Jones is at this point in time. I mean, it could have been a back-breaking, game-losing play for the Dallas Cowboys. I have no idea what the Cowboys safety group is doing. And this is where, if you pay attention to the content I create, I do a lot of streams here in the BR app. I'll be doing some post-game streams coming up next. I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to hanging out with all of you. Once again, follow me down below. You can check out my streams after the fact if you miss them in the moment. But if you follow me and consume the content I create, whether it's here in the BR app, on YouTube, on social, bloggingtheboys.com, whatever, you know that I am very hesitant to say things like, this defense misses Dan Quinn, because I don't totally believe that. And independent of that thought, I was ready to move on from Dan Quinn. In fact, it was the last Thursday night game before last night in which I officially declared that stance. In my post-game show on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, after Dallas beat the Seattle Seahawks last year on Thursday Night Football after Thanksgiving, I said, I'm ready to move on from Dan Quinn. So I wasn't heartbroken when he left. And this isn't to besmirch Dan Quinn. I wish him all the best, obviously. I don't want Washington to play well, but I wish him health, wealth, and happiness. And that being said, when it comes to the safety play of the Dallas Cowboys right now in this moment to bring the point back home, the Dallas Cowboys missed Dan Quinn because Dan Quinn was able to turn the safety position, something that the Cowboys had notoriously ignored forever and ever and ever with castoffs. Like, no offense, because he was and remains to be the GOAT in Jeff Heath. The Cowboys just had these dudes back there that were lucky to, or we were lucky if they made a singular play once, every half season. But Dan Quinn turned the group into a strength, into a viable point of strength. Donovan Wilson played amazing. Malik Hooker played amazing. Jaron Kearse, I know he played the safety, linebacker hybrid sort of role. Keanu Neal kind of, charted that path, blazed that trail a little bit in 2021. We saw the safeties thrive under Dan Quinn with the Dallas Cowboys. If one position group specifically has completely and totally regressed under Mike Zimmer, it's the back end. Now, we can ascribe some other excuses to other areas, right? Like, especially after last night, we can say, well, DeMarcus Lawrence is hurt, Micah Parsons is hurt, Sam Williams tore his ACL, whatever. Like the math there has changed. Linebacker, well, they didn't really do much. They signed Eric Hendricks, but they're depending on Leofau. Overshown's kind of flashing, had a great game himself on Thursday night, so it doesn't feel as dire. Corner, Deron Bland is hurt, right? And Trayvon Diggs is still being Trayvon Diggs, so it's not really as obvious. But name a good thing that a Dallas Cowboys safety has done so far this season. You can't. You simply cannot. It has been below average play. And it's not just below average play, it's below average decision making. Like Donovan, look, that last week there was the highlight. I tweeted this out, I posted on Instagram and Threads, and everybody had a great time with it. Donovan Wilson bit hard on the move that Rashad Bateman put on him. And I know a lot of people were really mad about that. It didn't bother me a ton. It did, obviously, but it didn't, because sometimes, look, these receivers are insane athletes, right? Sometimes they're going to put a move on you and you're going to bite, and that's going to happen. That sucks, but at least we can logically compartmentalize that in our minds. We can put ourselves in that situation, and we could say, well, Rashad Bateman, he cut one way, and Donovan Wilson assumed he was going to go that way, and he just lost, right? That happens. But to have poor effort on tackling efforts, and not just for that to be true in general, but for it to happen after everyone has been questioning and criticizing these specific things from you for the course of the last month, is just a new level of what are you doing, bro? So this area, this specific thing, is where the Dallas Cowboys really miss Dan Quinn. And I don't know that I would lump it up to safety play, but I would lump it up to discipline. And I know everybody was so quick to say, well, Mike Zimmer, he yells at people and he pisses people off, and everybody has bad relationships with him. So he's going to come in, he's going to rub these players the wrong way. He's going to have them acting all disciplined. Where's the proof of that? I don't see a singular thing. This is one of the weakest defenses in the NFL. They stood tall a little bit, relatively speaking, on Thursday night, but they stood tall against one of the worst teams in the NFL, one of the worst offenses in the NFL, in the New York Giants, who probably should have beaten them and may have beaten them if they had a head coach who wasn't a coward in the way that Brian Daboll was in this specific game. It was a win. I know that, that diatribe and that rant doesn't really make it feel that way, but it was a win for the Dallas Cowboys. They stopped the bleeding. And like I said, we now get a weekend to just breathe. We get a weekend to relax. We get a weekend of wonderful football action. We get Georgia, Alabama tomorrow, obviously as a nightcap on a great day of college football that it's going to be. We get to hang out with Scott Hansen on Sunday on the Red Zone channel. I cannot wait for it. It's the first time we get to just have, 100% Red Zone action on Sunday afternoon. And then we get a phenomenal Sunday night game with Buffalo visiting the Baltimore Ravens. And hopefully we get losses from Washington and Philadelphia, and we're able to convince ourselves that we're back in this thing and the Cowboys can completely and totally do this. So I hope you have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you so much for joining me here in the BR app. Like I said, I'm so grateful to the BR people for working with me and this opportunity. It's so much fun. I'm looking forward to the next couple of streams and post games for us to continue hanging out. So if you haven't yet, please follow me. You can do so directly in the app right down below. Or if you want to see me and my content normally in a visual capacity, subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subscribers over there. If you want to hang out with me on the internet on a full-time permanent basis, you can check me out on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at RJ Ochoa. I'm on TikTok as well at rj.ochoa. If you have some more long-form thoughts and you want to hit me up, you can shoot me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. For now, though, happy Victory Polo Monday on this Friday. I hope you eat something delicious. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy all the football. I hope your fantasy teams win. I hope your bets hit. I hope really it's just the best day of all time for you, because that's exactly what you deserve. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. See you next time.